Hi, guys. We're on to our last new topic of this chapter. Don't forget, we have a test this Friday. For this final topic, we will be dividing rational expressions. So far, this chapter, we have taken a single fraction and simplified it. We took two fractions and multiplied them together. And so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take two fractions and divide them. Today, we're going to be focusing on monomials, which means that you will not need to factor today. If you remember from, I don't even know how many years ago, when you learned how to divide fractions, there's a trick. We don't actually ever divide fractions. Instead, we multiply by the reciprocal. So when you see a division sign in between your two fractions, you're going to take the reciprocal, that means flip it upside down, of the second fraction, the fraction that's after the division sign. And then when you do that, then you can change it to multiplication instead. And we already learned how to multiply. So let's try this with monomials. Okay, so one thing I do want to point out is that you are not allowed to do any math while it's a division sign. So there's no cross-canceling, there's no multiplying straight across when it's dividing. So you want to be really, really careful about that. So we don't want to do any actual calculations until we have successfully changed it into a multiplication problem. And to do that, we're going to take the second fraction and flip it upside down. We're going to leave the first fraction the same. And then when we do that, we are going to change the division symbol into a multiplication symbol. Now, there's a little bit more to this one than just the division sign. So I have this negative e in parentheses with a square on the outside. And so, you know, when you square a number, you're multiplying it by itself. So this is saying like negative e times another negative e. And so that becomes a positive e squared. So I did simplify this also a little bit right here. But the main idea of what I did was I took this fraction and I flipped it upside down. The f squared's on top, the e to the third's on the bottom. And I changed the division sign to multiplication. Now that it's a multiplication problem, now we can do multiplying, which we did last week. When you're multiplying, you can either multiply straight across, top numbers times top numbers, bottom numbers times bottom numbers, and then you would simplify your fraction. Or you can do cross-canceling. Since there's not too much happening in this problem, I'm going to go ahead and cross-cancel. So when I'm cross-canceling, my e's can cross-cancel. I had two e's up top and three on the bottom. These two e's will cancel out two of the e's down here, leaving me with just one e. And for my f squares, like, they're exactly the same. They're both f squares, so those are just going to completely cancel out. Now notice that my e is under my fraction bar, and so it does need to stay below the fraction bar. So make sure that your letters stay on whatever side of the fraction bar that they were originally. And since there's nothing left over on top, I'm going to put a number 1 as a placeholder. So 1 over e is my final answer. Why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video and try this one on your own. And then when you're ready, we can check and see how you did. All right, guys, how'd you do? So the first thing I want to point out is we cannot cross-cancel the C's and the D's because this is the division problem. So make sure that you changed it to multiplication first. And actually, the only thing that's going to end up cross-canceling is the 3's. So if I change this to multiplication, I'm going to keep my 3c to the third and my d squared. I'm going to put multiplying here, and then it's c to the third up top and 3d squared on the bottom. So now you can see that when it's written as a multiplication problem, the c's are no longer diagonal from each other, and the d's also are no longer diagonal from each other. The only thing that is able to cross-cancel, because one's on top and one's on the bottom, are the number 3. And so your c's, you're just going to add your exponents. 3 plus 3 is 6. And then also for your d's, you would add your exponents since they're on the same level of the fraction, right? Since both c's are on top and both of the d's are on the bottom. So then we add the exponents, and that is something we learned last semester. All right, guys, that's it for today. You're going to have a worksheet with more monomials, and then tomorrow will be our last video, which is division with factoring. Until then.